Okay, it'd be great to start with just a little bit of background on yourself. I don't know how far back you want to go, but just a bit about your, maybe education into work and, up until the point you arrived at Wave, I guess, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah. So after school, I went to Oxford Polytechnic, which became Oxford Brookes Uni while I was there. And I studied geography and business in a modular degree. I really enjoyed all of the geography, particularly that I did, and was very interested in the environment, in the sort of peak oil at that time, and how the country was moving a little bit towards renewables, even at that stage. And I kind of left uni, I guess, like a lot of people, not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I had a brief spell working in a marketing company, which felt a little bit like continuation of uni days. So, it was all promotions of drinks like Bacardi and Holston Pills. I was the brand manager for Rothmans and Alfred Dunhill. So it was all fags and beer. And it was a lot of fun. And then I saw a job for an energy company that had just started up in the newly deregulated, I guess, non-household gas market. And I thought, wow, that's quite interesting, because I didn't realize that the gas market was deregulating. So I joined a very, very small company called Associated Natural Gas Incorporated. And we were based in Oxford. And the idea was that we were going to take on British Gas and take on some of their customers and provide them with billing services and customer services that would be, more bespoke and more suited to their needs than British Gas could deliver. And I was lucky enough to work alongside a very, very talented tech team who were developing systems for the new market. And I was in charge of sales. And it was very loose lead sales, I think, because it was incredibly easy. We were offering a discount. We were offering what we thought was a better service. And most customers that we spoke to were interested to come and join. And very quickly, we were acquired first by a company called Pan Energy, and then by a much more well-known company. So then we were acquired by Enron, and Enron had decided to, go global on energy, and bought this tiny operation in Oxford, and wanted to upscale it, wanted to get into electricity, and kind of really go for it in the market. And so I guess I've been shaped by that quite a lot. One of my first work experiences was for Enron. They gave me quite a big belief. Their tagline was endless possibilities. And I think it has kind of stuck with me throughout my career, because it was something they really wholeheartedly believed in. Obviously, things went spectacularly bad for Enron over in Houston, and the business in Oxford was sold. And it was a very I guess it was comical, really, at the time, because British Gas bought it. And so for all the people that had worked in the deregulated market as a new entrant, suddenly we'd been bought by the former incumbent. And so it felt really, really weird. And our CEO was joining British Gas as well, thankfully. A very, very inspirational gentleman called Enrique Jimenez. And just before we met the new owners, he stood on the desks in the customer services team, got us all in for a briefing, and basically said, remember, we know more about this deregulated market than British Gas does, because they've been really defending their territory. So don't forget that as we go forwards, because it should be us leading this integration, not them. And have the confidence to know that you should be leading this. And several months later, when we looked around the table of the integration team, it was mostly Enron people. So it was quite an incredible talk that he did. But I was pregnant at the time, and so I remember having a meeting with Sir Mike Alexander. I was granted 15 minutes with Sir Mike Alexander to talk to him about what I wanted out of my career and next steps. And I told him I was pregnant, and hats off to him. He was fantastic. He said to me, "You don't have to worry about that." He said, "You know, you're part of a much bigger organization now. When you come back, there'll be lots and lots of opportunities for you in different teams. You know, so just do what you can, you know, we'll look after you." And I think it kind of shifted my perspective of British Gas from being this kind of Luddite incumbent kind of business into thinking, actually, these people, it's much more family orientated. And I looked around me and saw, you know, there were 16-year-old school leavers, as well as people nearly retiring, you know, in a much more diverse workforce, where at Enron, the average age was 27 or something, you know, it was just very young and lots of graduates. And so for me at that time of life, kind of in my 30s, I was really pleased to find myself at British Gas. And, you know, we had a really good time there, because we then had the N1 systems. The turnover at British Gas was down at around about 300 million at that stage for their B2B operations. So they had lost a lot of customers. And so we decided to win them back, and we went back, and within the next 5 years, we took the book back to over £1 billion turnover. We just, you know, then we had everything. We had the systems, we had the know-how, you know, we had the brand. And, you know, I did really, really enjoy working for British Gas. And in fact, I worked there twice. So I had a brief spell in, I guess what you call comparison websites. So at USwitch and at at Money Supermarket. And it was great experience there, actually, looking at how a digital only business worked. And that was in the domestic sector. And then I was asked to come back to British Gas to look at their digital offering for customers and to try and build something more relevant there, which I really enjoyed doing as well. And I guess at that stage, my career had flipped to being offered opportunities rather than going and looking for opportunities. So, you know, at that stage, I was asked to go and speak to Northumbrian Water about their market entry. And it was a really interesting opportunity, because they were a former incumbent entering a newly deregulated market. But the theme of my career, I've been at the front of all newly deregulating utilities markets. And I thought, well, this is interesting, because this is what I've done, but it's entering the market at scale. So entering the market with hundreds of thousands of customers on day one, on new systems, new team, new business. So having met Heidi Mottram and, you know, a few of the Northumbrian Water team, I decided that I did want to do it. And I joined Northumbrian and very quickly realised that we were going to struggle with scale, and that, you know, we weren't big enough really to shoulder all the costs of market entry and the costs of operation. And so we looked around at all the businesses that were kind of entering the market, and decided that Anglian Water had quite a similar approach to the market, but actually they'd done different things. So we'd kind of concentrated on the tech, and they'd concentrated on the team development and the billing. And so we started conversations about a joint venture with Anglian. And so very soon after the market opened, we formed the new company, Wave. And yeah, we've just gone from strength to strength, really. So Wave, I guess now doesn't really feel like a joint venture, because it's been so many years since the two companies came together. And now, you know, we're one of the big retailers in the non-household water market. We are a former incumbent, but we don't think like a former incumbent. We think like a new entrant. So we try to, you know, we had the scale advantage at the beginning. Although actually what I've learned is that scale often isn't an advantage at the beginning of a market, because when you're opening a new business and migrating onto new systems, it's difficult. But you know, we've grown and we've chosen the sectors to specialize in, and we've got a fantastic team of people. Yeah, and it's a great business to be part of.
Yeah, and that sector of the market, that operates the deregulated for non-domestic, that works really successfully, does it, with the mixture of the companies that are in there? It's a success story.
It's becoming a success story, I think, to be honest. So the market is 7 years old, and in the early stages, it was plagued a bit with legacy data issues, so poor data that came into the market. Also, obviously, the wholesalers in the non-household water market are responsible for not maintaining the infrastructure for the pipes and the meters that serve customers. So there's a lot of interaction between retailers and wholesalers, and the systems that help the retailers and wholesalers talk to each other didn't come about until a couple of years ago. So in the early days, that was very manual and quite disjointed. But I think the market has really pulled together to kind of overcome some of the issues around data, what we now call the bilateral portal, so the system that helps wholesalers and retailers talk to each other. And recently I've been involved with the strategic panel, which is a group of wholesalers and retailers together with Ofwat, Mosul, DEFRA and independent members, who are all looking at kind of what will make the market really, really flourish, and kind of looking at those next steps. But certainly for the large water users, I would say that the opening of the market has given a lot of benefit, because they are now able to choose a retailer for their entire portfolio. So rather than being supplied by a number of different wholesalers across a patchwork of England, they can now choose one retailer and have one retail solution for all of their customers, which most multi-site large customers have done that now. Obviously, Scotland is a separate market, but most retailers do operate in Scotland and England, and the Welsh market hasn't opened yet. So the Welsh market is separate, but it has really helped customers to kind of bring their water into one place. And I think as we go forwards and we start looking at water scarcity and water efficiency in a bit more detail, that will really help customers, because they'll be able to see exactly what their portfolio is consuming, and then they'll be able to work out strategies on how to reduce that consumption.
Okay, and in terms of your job role as the CEO, I suspect there isn't one, but are you able to give us a flavour of what a typical day might look like, or the sort of things you get involved in, or even a week, if it's maybe a day is too smaller sort of?
I think maybe a week's easier, isn't it? I've got a great team. I've got an absolutely fantastic team. I tend to meet my direct reports for a couple of hours one week, and then maybe just half an hour the next week. So there tends to be a kind of long catch up and a short catch up on a kind of week by week basis. We all get together as a leadership team on a Tuesday afternoon, and we have a kind of operational meeting where we talk about everything that we need to go through. We look at our finances, we look at our operational metrics, we look at ad hoc topics together. We also have a catch up on a Friday. It's a bit of a hangover from COVID, I think. So during the COVID days, we were literally having a stand up every morning and a stand up every evening to check how everything was going. But we've kept the Friday catch up just to do a bit of a wash up, what happened during the week. And then I guess my main mandate is around checking in. I work very closely with the finance director. So we look at the strategic plan, and we look at how, where we're on track, where we're off track, and then we focus on the off track metrics and look at what needs to be done to improve. I'm a living leader coach, so I try to help as many people as I can in terms of their own approach to their roles, looking at their career development as well. And then when fires are burning, I tend to be the person who gets the really hot things thrown up the chain. So if something's really on fire, that tends to come in my direction. And then, you know, my job is either to support or pick up, depending on what's most appropriate. And, you know, I always like to empower my team to do as much as possible. But if they've run out of steam, then I'm always happy to pile in and try and get involved in things as well. So, you know, every year there's a different kind of challenge. You know, obviously the COVID years were really stressful in terms of just keeping the business going, keeping enough cash in the business to run. But now the types of things we tend to get coming up the chain tend to be more customer specific issues. So it might be to do with a really complicated meter network issue that needs to be resolved in partnership with a wholesaler and a customer, and we need to all get around the table and work out what needs to be happening. Or it could be something to do with a particular internal process that's maybe not working properly or working in a way that we want to upgrade, you know. So those are the types of things that I'll be getting involved in. And we also have implemented a strategy around really collaborating across the business, because we find that at Wave, you know, the power of collaboration is really, really strong. So we have separate forums. So we've got a data forum that looks at the data quality in the business. We've got a gross margin forum that looks at all of the, you know, kind of gross margin anomalies and what root causes might be causing those. You know, and so those forums really, well, I was going to say billing forum, actually. The billing forum seems to have died down a little bit because we've got on top of quite a lot of those issues now, which is great. So we just sort of shine the light on the issues and make sure that, you know, we're doing all the right things to try and improve as we move forwards.
And in terms of your sort of career and challenges you may have encountered on the way, I mean, when you arrived in the utility sector, I guess that was in the gas sector to start with. I mean, did it strike you then immediately that you were in the minority in terms of a female in a fairly male-dominated world? And then when you made the switch to the water, and you referenced Heidi Mottram, so Northumbrian, you know, there was somebody there, but just your thoughts, I suppose, as to any challenges you encountered and whether you thought they were perhaps because you were, you know, in the minority in quite a male-dominated sector.
Yeah, I think I first noticed it in the late 90s when I attended the gas forum. So there used to be, when the market was deregulating for gas, there was a forum where all of the market participants sent a representative, and we talked about market processes and how things were going to work in the new market. And I stood out like a sore thumb. I was probably at least 10 or 15 years younger than everyone else, and I was female, and there was only one other female there. And so it actually took quite a lot of bravery to speak in that meeting, I felt, because you know, there was a lot of voices, a lot of male voices, a lot of very confident male voices. Yeah, I felt younger. I felt like I guess I was suffering a little bit from imposter syndrome. I was worried that if I said something, was it going to sound totally stupid and wide of the mark, you know, and you know, and I did get a few comments from people, you know, kind of a little bit sexist, a little bit, you know, kind of nice to see a young lady here, and you just don't know kind of how to take that, whether you sort of think, actually, that really shouldn't be said to me. But you know, what I did realize as I went through is that as my confidence grew, what I realized was some of the things that I hadn't said a couple of weeks later, I'd wish I'd said, because they were right. So I would be thinking, okay, when I sat there and thought, oh, that might be a stupid thing to say, and I didn't say it, a couple of weeks later, I'd be saying, actually, I've reflected on this now, and I really think this is the way forwards. And people would be, oh, that's a really good idea. Yes, that does sound like an option. So I think what I realized was that even though it was taking me, there was a kind of probably a bit of a buffer in time, and I was kind of thinking, why didn't I just have the confidence to say it straight away? what I realized was that I did have quite good intuition, and that I could be part of that conversation. And so over time, what I did was I sort of realized that I guess I built a bit of belief in myself and thought, you can say those things straight away. You don't need to worry about whether it's stupid. Some of them occasionally might be a bit, probably not, but it doesn't matter. It's not like getting it wrong. And I think that's what people fear, isn't it? Is being, getting it wrong, or kind of feeling a bit like you've said something out of place. But actually, I think my perspective has always been that if you get a range of views, if the view that is landed on isn't yours, it doesn't matter, because we've all participated in shaping what that solution is. And so, yeah, I've definitely felt like over time that belief in myself, belief in my intuition, and belief in, my thought processes in utilities, particularly because I've been in this sector a long time now. I kind of trust my judgment a bit more, I guess.
And in terms of the sort of attitudes to DEI, if you like, within the sector, do you think, I'm hoping you've seen them improve since you've been involved, but do you think there's still a way to go? So I guess a sort of snapshot of where you think the industry's got to now, and maybe what more it perhaps needs to be doing.
I mean, it's hard to speak for the entire industry. I think, there are a couple of factors at play here that maybe give it a natural disadvantage. In utilities, there are a lot of engineers, and the engineers do tend to be predominantly male. I think back at British Gas might have been in, I guess, I'm trying to think, it was probably 20, it's got to be 20 years ago, there was the first female gas engineer, and was very celebrated. If somebody's applied to be a gas engineer and they can do the job, and they've been given the job. And then there was a lot of focus about, when you're doing 8 appointment gas boiler services in a day, and you're appointed out to different houses, kind of how safe is that for a female walking into a house on their own doing that appointment? And all the systems that need to go alongside lone working and engineers, to support them in their health and safety. I guess I tend to think that in those engineering roles, they will be predominantly male, because there is a level of strength and physicality that maybe lends itself to that. And we certainly see that in the water industry. Even in the meter reading sector, it tends to be kind of mostly male. Because some of the meter lids are too, very, very heavy to lift, and things like that. So there is a kind of, I guess, a kind of male dominance on the engineering side. I think also a lot of those, and I guess historically it used to be that the engineers came through, became area managers, became managers, became, managers outside of the engineering world. And that's certainly how it was at British Gas. There was a lot of engineers that had come through the ranks and made it into the leadership structure. But I guess now increasingly we're starting to see the utilities industry recruiting leaders from other industries, and that's bringing in more diversity. And I think that tends to be where you see people coming in, and it's good because you have people who have maybe banking experience, insurance experience, not necessarily utilities experience. And that's, I think, helping to make the industry more diverse, not only in terms of skill set, but also in terms of makeup of the people involved, which is really, really positive. And I don't think there's anything sort of too cynical going on in terms of, male dominance. I think it just has been, like that for utilities. And I think it's for me, it feels like it's for the women to realise, that they've got a voice, and that their views are valued, and that their opinions, are really, really valuable in business. I think there's also truth in that you do tend to hire a little in your own likeness. And so if you've got a male CEO, you get a more male team. Maybe it's true in my team. My team's 50% female at the leadership level, and 50% female, at the senior head of level as well. So I think maybe we are demonstrating that, you know, not just in, I guess, HR and legal and finance, where you do tend to find a few more female representatives, but it also in, you know, the customer teams and the operations teams now, and legal and regs, we've got female leaders in Wave. And that, I think, just gives the female cohort of a business a role model, you know. And I think that's probably what's been lacking in the past, is when I roll the clock back in my career to sort of 20-30 years ago, did I have a female role model as a CEO? No, I didn't. And you know, that didn't come to till much later in my career. And I think, you know, now they're much more prevalent, and that's great, because I think, you know, you need to be able to see it and think, you know, and think actually that's what I want to do.
And I mean, as a successful female in the industry, do you feel any particular responsibility to sort of promote DEI further, or is it just sort of built in? Is it sort of organic just because of who you are? It happens naturally, or do you actively, consciously make decisions? We need to do this, or we need to do that. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to how.
Yeah, I mean, we're not actively, consciously doing female leadership programs or anything like that. It's coming very naturally in Wave. I think it's inbuilt in me to check, you know, sometimes I check how, you know, what's the balance male female in our head of population, what's the balance, you know, if I look at a training course that's happening, I will naturally think how many men, how many women are going on that training course, just to see if there is a balance. But we don't do anything about it. I guess, you know, I've worked in environments where there have been programs, and actually I probably should have mentioned that I was very lucky at British Gas to be chosen as a high potential female in the British Gas organisation, and I was provided with a mentor through that programme, and it was my mentor who really pushed me to take the job at Northumbrian Water. He knew how happy I was at British Gas, but he said, you know, if I was in your shoes, this is what I would do. And I remember thinking, oh, you know, it's a bit of a wrench, but out of a very comfortable, happy place to go and do something, to be employee number one in a new operation is quite a challenge. But I don't look back with anything but happiness on that decision. And so what I do is I do like to pay particular attention to talent, but I wouldn't say that's just all female talent, but it might be slightly more female talent, and I will, you know, always be there for those people that I've got a strong connection with, as a sounding board, as you know, as their careers develop. So there's a number of people who I kind of informally mentor, and you know, would always be around for a catch up and a coffee if they had a big decision to make in their career, or a challenge in their role. And I think that's really how women can really help each other. I liken it a little bit to, when I talk to people, to the golf course, because it used to be kind of 20-30 years ago that you'd be on the senior leaders in the businesses that I worked in, like Associated Natural Gas Incorporated, the guys at the senior level would often go and play golf. And I always used to think it was a bit of a, you know, why am I doing that? Why is that okay to do that? But I kind of realize it now, because, you know, it's a walk, it's a talk. Some of the talk is about work, some of the talk is personal. It's a relationship build, and it probably is a little bit of informal coaching and mentoring. And I think females need to really work at this, and it's fine to go and have a coffee, it's fine to go and have a lunch, it's fine to go and have a walk, and talk about things, and talk about yourself, talk about challenges you're facing, you know, and to make the time to do that. It's fine, because I think sometimes we struggle to give ourselves permission to take the time to do it. But I think if there was one thing that I would say to a female leader or a female kind of embarking on their career is take the time to go and have conversations with people who you can learn from.
And in terms of the sort of challenges in maybe ensuring a diverse workforce, clearly them being able to see role models within organizations is one thing. And I'm just wondering as well, I mean, I know Wave is not directly, with the Big Ten water utility, but clearly the industry has a bit of an image problem at the moment. Does any of that, do you think, not help the situation in terms of recruiting, because people think, oh, I just don't want to join an industry or an organization where I'm going to get criticism and bad, or is that not really an issue for people? I don't know.
Do you know, it is an issue, and I think what I find is that it's kind of, it's maybe when you're down the pub talking to your friends and someone says, oh, what do you do? And you say, oh, I work in the water industry. Straight away it's, oh, you're responsible for, the rivers and the seas and the this and that. And you think, well, I try to find a way to go about it, to kind of talk about it and say that, nobody wants to see pollution. Nobody wants that. In fact, what you find is a lot of people who work in utilities are very environmentally led people. And I would count myself in that. I'm very, very strong on environment and, energy efficiency and water efficiency are the things that really appeal to me in my career. But we're dealing with a system that was built, largely by the Victorians. It's been underinvested. You could argue all day about why that is. But let's just face the fact it's been underinvested. And when we see unprecedented rainfall and when we see the very dense showers like we've been seeing this year, the system just can't cope with it. And big infrastructure programs are being planned to deal with that. And, I think it's difficult. We'd all like to, I guess it's easier to work for John Lewis. But I think providing, your place in and the role you're playing in the solution, then I think, it's fine. Lots of industries find themselves in adverse PR situations, and it just so happens that water's very much in that situation at the moment. The other thing that everyone takes for granted is the quality of the water that comes out of our taps. It's absolutely staggering, isn't it? And we have very, very high quality water. Nobody understands quite how scarce water is and quite what goes into delivering that through the tap. It's a massive undertaking to kind of get that to where it is. And I think we are on the cusp of that story unraveling. I think people will, in the next kind of 5 to 10 years, start to really understand that, a lot goes into that, and we all need to pay a lot more attention into what we do with the water and how we consume it and how we conserve it, most importantly.
Yeah, and maybe just, I mean, in summary, I chatted quite a lot about DI. I don't know if you've got any sort of thoughts or advice, as to what works. I know you said you sort of maybe don't have any specific programs, it happens more organically, but are there any things that spring to mind that have worked well in terms of encouraging sort of diversity, and conversely, is there anything you've seen, whether in your own organization or elsewhere, that you think, oh, that, whether it's, I know some people have quotas, don't they? So they insist that you have equal amounts of males and females apply for job stuff, so that's sort of almost artificial. But just, I don't know, any thoughts you might share on the good and the bad?
I guess personally, I wouldn't really want to be going down the quota route, but I think for me, what it boils down to is building your confidence, knowing that you have a place a place and a voice in the industry, knowing that just because somebody is forceful, male and forceful with their opinions doesn't mean that they have better solutions than you do. And, being confident enough to kind of keep involved in a conversation, even if it is quite forceful or a little bit out of your tolerance. But also just building the network. And I think, you know, there's the Women's Utilities Network, which obviously does an amazing job here. But whether you're a member of that or whether you're not, you know, build your network. And it doesn't have to be all women. You know, it can be just find the people who think like you, find the people who, you know, really understand you and support each other. And, you know, be aware that, you know, you are entitled to use your time at work to do that, you know. So if you need to go and do a lunch or a walk or a coffee, you know, do make the time to do that, because, you know, that's, I think, the way that women will continue to increase their profile in the market, is by, you know, do it for yourself, but support each other as well.
Okay, it's been great to chat and some lovely insights and thoughts as to the industry and sharing your career story. So Lucy, really appreciate your time. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.